So we are eventually tonight going to reintroduce you to the Trondells, which was Frank's original band, and this is their 50th year anniversary. So it's something to celebrate. So I want everybody to start thinking of questions and interest. If you fall short of being able to come up with something, let me know, and I'll ask them a bunch of questions that will get them going. Yeah, don't ask them how old they are. They can't count that high.
I'll ask one.
This is for Frank, since he's been around that I know in our area the longest. Out of all the places you played in our county, in our area, I don't care how far back, what was the most memorable moment out of all of them?
I think I've played everywhere in the county since I was 12 years old. I would say probably at Stillwell when I was in junior high. Stillwell Vikings here. Monroe Manor people. So we all grew up in Monroe Manor, and I would say that. But you know what? Every place through the years has been a joy for me. It's what I live for. It's what got me through every week. Like I said, we grew up poor in Monroe Manor, and as my music friends would say, we got the hell out of there, you know.
One thing that I forgot to tell you about, you'll notice over here an empty chair, and you'll notice just to the other side of that a wreath. That empty chair represents every musician that's passed away. And we go back to, I think our first was Bob Corsby. So the empty chair is meant to be looking over the stage tonight. So if you'll take a minute to have a moment of thought, I want you to place whoever you want in that empty chair. We got a lot of spirit, and we're going to carry a lot of spirit. Who's got the next question?
All right, our question for all of you is who or what band or style of music or anything was your greatest influence to get you to start playing and to continue playing? And you can start with whoever you want.
For me, it probably had to be Beatles. Beatles did it for everybody. You know, Beatles and that song. Nobody else can beat that.
As a guitar player, my first big influence was Jeff Beck. And then Hendrix came along, and Jimmy Page, and there's a couple others there. But some people don't realize Stephen Stills was a kick-ass guitar player too. But there's been a lot of guitar players that have influenced me. But mostly Jeff Beck. You know, I still got a Telecaster.
You think that's bad? Wes is next. I hate to be a copycat, but Dan's right. In 1964, I believe, they were on Ed Sullivan, the Beatles. I ran down to Roxy's and bought a bass guitar.
Actually, for me, it wasn't any one single band. To me, it was the era, and I guess the sheer companionship that you have with fellow musicians, and it seemed like everybody and their brother was going out to buy a guitar or start playing drums, and they had the drums in the bedroom, or you were in somebody's garage. But that's what it was all about for me. That's what it's always been about. Are the people that you meet and the experiences. The music just helps draw people together for that. So that's what it's always been for me.
Well, I would agree with Wes. There were many influences. The Beatles probably number one, and then second for me was the Rolling Stones, because the Rolling Stones introduced me to a lot of blues. At the time, I didn't even know it was blues, right? As a kid, but later in life, when you look back at who wrote those songs, who first performed them, you know, like I said, the Rolling Stones were a big influence on my taste in music.
I'll have to agree with the rest of them. Probably the Beatles, number one. But besides that, would have been the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, Roger McGuinn, Chris Hillman, Graham Parsons. My dad. My dad played. I remember trying to reach around his guitar. It was too big for me to play. But I want to reiterate what Wes and Larry said. Is probably one of the biggest influence, the best influences I had was sitting around with my buddies, sitting around the basement and playing all hours of the morning, just having a blast. That was one of the best influences there.
Just a side note here. I probably known Roger since I was 3 or 4 years old, maybe even younger. Yeah. And his dad used to bring his guitar to my aunt's house and play when we would have like family gatherings and stuff. And this guy was a player. I mean, he wasn't just a slouch, he was a player. So I know where some of Roger's influence came from, but he didn't give you your first guitar lesson, did he?
No, fellow out there gave me my first.
Bill Swanson. Bill, stand up and say hello. This is Bill Swanson, who spent many years with Roxy Music Shop as a service band. Heck of a guitar player, they're telling me, but you did more than that. You also taught organ, didn't you? Mostly guitar. See, I remember you fixing stuff. I think I came to you for lessons. You said you'll never get it.
Being that I'm probably 5 to 8 years older than all these guys, my biggest influence was probably Buddy Holly, Chuck Berry, those kind of guys. And then a group that I ended up playing in was an influence. I spent a lot of years standing on the floor watching the Rivieras play at Tipton Terrace, and then got the opportunity to join the group and play with them. So those were my influences. Bill, I gotta tell you a story. I bought my first kit at Roxy in 1964. I bought my second kit in there in 1968, a Rogers 360 set, and I still have that kit. My older son sold it to a friend back in the 80s for $200, and about 7 years ago, he was down in Atlanta for Christmas with me, and he said, you know, I think Billy still got that set. We bought it back for $200, went on eBay, ordered some hardware, and refurbished it, and now I've got it stored in my house. So I got a set from '68 that I bought here.
Here we go again. I had a lot of people, I guess, that I was influenced by, but I think mostly was Ricky Nelson, to sit and watch him come on after the Ozzie Harriet show. And Elvis Presley, my mom, she was an older lady, I guess, back then. I shouldn't say that. She was probably in her 30s, I guess, at the time that Elvis was. Sorry. I never really thought about how old she was, but she always had all the Elvis Presley records. My mom had every record that was ever made, and my mom was very, very talented. She played the dulcimer, she played a hell of an accordion, she played piano, she played banjo, harmonica, guitar. We never watched much TV growing up. All we did was watch my mother play, and then in '49 she recorded a whole lot of records, and they were the days of the vinyl. Hi. they were vinyl when you would go in and sing, and while you were singing, the records were made right on the vinyl. And I think that was done at the corner of Rose Street and Ohio. Thank you. You remember that. And then along came that guy right there with the Rivieras, and I remember I was 12 at the time, and I would go up to Tipton Terrace also and watch the Rivieras, and John Meister and I had started a band, and the band was called the Trondells, and the reason it was called the Trondells is because up at Tipton Terrace there was a band that was playing that was called the Deltrons, and John says, wow, we're going to be the Trondells. So we were before the Hondells, the Shondells, and God knows what. So we had John Meister to thank for that. So thank you, Terry.
I was going to say, before Roger gets up here, I'm going to put a plug in, since I didn't, for a band. Motown music, I think, was fantastic, and that was what I really enjoyed listening to.
I got 3 questions in one statement. First question goes to Frank. I wanted to tell us the transition from the Tronsdales to the Midwest Hallucination and the famous light wheel to the bare facts. I'd like to know how it came for you guys to play for Bobby Kennedy during this campaign speech. And also, I want Wes to tell the story. I got to hang around with these guys a lot throughout the last couple of years, and there's a hilarious story about Dan's dad, and Wes tells it so good about the buying the equipment. So take it from there, guys.
Well, the people that are playing here tonight, the Trondells, we did lose our guitar player 3 years ago, Gary Lindsay, who was from Stillwell also, and we got started in the at Stillwell School. Gary would play his guitar in the 7th grade, and he would play the Bonanza song, and during lunch hour out of Stillwell at that time was 1 through 12th grade, and we probably all averaged probably 12 to 15 kids in our class, which was really kind of unreal then. And
So you had a whole class in the band.
yeah, that's it. We had a whole class there. But anyway, the Trondells, they are, all the original members are here, and we've only had probably 5 or 6 practices, and so they're kind of psyched out by what we're doing. So make sure you give them a hand clap that they had the nerve after 50 years to come back up and play. I'm the only one that is still playing just about every weekend. And anyway, from the Trondells, back in the 60s, there was a group that played in this building right here, and I want to say around 67, they were called the California Spectrum. Did anybody ever get out here to see the California Spectrum besides Big Larry? The most unbelievable psychedelic group you ever seen in your life. I can remember a stage being like this, and it's the first strobe light that I ever seen. And the one guy was all bandaged up, and he had an army coat on, and he had his guitar, and he was marching around with his guitar like it was a gun in that strobe light. Unbelievable. And at that point, from the Trondells, we were the same band, but we changed our name to the Midwest Hallucinations just because of the California Spectrum, because we were really blown out by that. You know, there was LSD going on, and God knows everything, a lot of racial violence and the whole work, so we kind of got away from that. And anyway, our piano player, Mr. Ken Hayes, is Ken here? He's not here yet? Anyway, he had built this wheel, and it stood probably 8 to 9 feet tall. It was probably 6 or 7 feet in diameter. He had lights, and he had figured this all out himself. He had a motor, and then he had put copper all the way around this wheel, and this motor would touch just like it would on any kind of electric motor, and that wheel would just spin. And he had lights behind holes in the big wheel, and it would shoot out at the audience as a strobe light, but the lights, does anybody remember that wheel? I know a few of them. I don't know how to explain it to you. And I don't think we have a picture of it either, but then we took that wheel all over the Midwest, and we became a psychedelic band. And Ken Hayes was fantastic, except it was really dangerous for some damn reason. One night, before the thing got kicked on, I happened to touch the piece of copper that was going around, about burnt my finger off from the electric that was going through that thing. But it was my thumb. Just kidding. That happened in another accident. All right, next.
The Bobby Kennedy experience. At the time, we were traveling quite a bit as a band around the country, and I believe it was the Democratic Club that probably hired us to do that, and we were set up on a large flatbed truck right next to where the old train station is in LaPorte. At that time, Bobby Kennedy, believe it or not, was on his way to Los Angeles, where he was eventually assassinated 2 weeks later. But he had come through LaPorte for a whistle stop. And you guys may have some memories that I don't, but I could clearly remember at that time he had a bodyguard named Rosie Greer. Rosie Greer was right out in front, just pushing people aside because there were literally thousands of people there. And my biggest recollection, you guys add anything you want, I was standing kind of in the background watching him give his talk, and he had some 3x5 cards. And the one thing that I'll never forget was how badly that his hands were shaking as he was giving that talk with the 3x5 cards. And I'm literally, his hands were like this, and you would think that a person who, of his stature, would be used to doing those kinds of things, but some of us never get used to that, I guess. Do you guys have any recollections of that you want to? Go ahead. I did not.
Really, it's not that important. But, yeah, Rolling Sound Corporation. VanSchoyck set up the sound system on this big flatbed trailer and had everything really nice. And Bobby gets up to the microphone, and it was dead. Nothing worked, and he ended up using our PA system to do his speech, and I kind of thought that was pretty cool.
As far as other things go, and I would say about Vince Bosiga at Rolling Sound Service, and I would say the same thing about Roxy's. I think, and Frank, as a bass player, thank God for Roxy and Rolling Sound Service, because you blew those 12-inch speakers out of those Fender Bassmen about every 15 minutes, so you were always looking for a speaker at Rolling Sound Service or over there. We were looking for some new amplifiers and a new PA system, and we went over to a place in South Bend called Crazy Jack's, which was on Western, and Dan and I went over with his father. Now, Dan's father was a great guy, and he was a guy that never took no for an answer. So we walked in, Jack came over, and Dan told him, his dad said, we would like to buy 3 dual showmen, and we need some custom PA equipment. And he gave him a list, and the guy looked it over and gave him a price. And I remember Dan's dad reaching into his pocket, and he pulled out some cash while we're standing there with the owner, and he goes, Daniel, you boys go down and get some food. We're gonna be here a long time. Hey, I want to recognize somebody here while he's doing that. Music was big all over the country at that time. And I want to recognize an individual here that you're going to see on the stage with at least 2 different bands. a good friend of mine that I've gotten to know over the past 17 years. Glenn, would you stand up, please? This is Glenn Miranda. Now, I want to introduce Glenn, not because he's my friend, I don't care about that. No, I'm just if you heard of the band, the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and the song Incense and Peppermint, Glenn Miranda, an original member and co-author of that song. Glenn has been on the road with the Staples Singers, Dionne Warwick, Roy Clark, and if you were to sit down and talk with Dan, you would not find, or with Glenn, you would not find a better musician anywhere. And I want to thank Glenn very much on behalf of all of us.
Okay, my grandkids are raising their hands, so come up and ask a question. Yeah. Grandpa, were you ever young?
Come on, Chase.
What was your favorite song in each of your favorite bands?
I can't remember who wrote the song. I think his name was Cal something, and it came out in 1960, and it was a song called Hey Baby. And then it came out again in Dirty Dancing, which I want to say it was 1987. Anybody remember when Dirty Dancing came out? 84? Wow. And he went, hey, hey, baby, I want to know, would you be my girl? And I've always loved that song, and to this day we still play it. So that's mine.
As soon as he said the name of the song, I knew he couldn't do it without singing it. I knew it.
You don't answer this one right.
I probably don't have any choice but to say California Sun. Played it thousands of times, twice every show. Start of the first set, start of the third set, same song every time. Never changed. If you want to hear it, they still play it, or rent the movie Good Morning Vietnam. They play it in there.
Barry, before you sit down,
I'm going to interrupt my grandkids for a minute, but tell us a story about when another group posed as you. Do you remember that?
Yeah, half of them are probably sitting on this stage. Some of these guys probably know Bill Dobslaw was our manager, and not the most famous guy in the world, not the most honest guy. One night we go out to a place called Clear Lake, Iowa. Little bitty hole in the wall. And we go down in a dressing room, which I think was a coal bin at one time. And on the wall, well, first let me tell you earlier. A little bit earlier in the evening, the guy that, when we're setting up, the guy that runs the place says, boy, you don't look like the guys that were here last time. And it was like, the five of us looked at each other and we're like, we never been here. We go down in the dressing room, and up on the wall it says, the Rivieras, and gives the date. So, somebody was there as us, maybe Russ.
Sanders.
Probably Russ Sanders, because Dobson used to send him out, book us 2 places in the same night. And we would go to one place and somebody else would go to that place. So we come back here, and after that, Mr. Dobson took a 5% reduction in his pay, as did our booking agent out of Chicago. I won't mention that because they're still around, still a big time booking agent. But I would also say that became the downfall of the Rivieras, because the jobs got thinner after that.
Well, that
and not as many. Yeah, but the Beatles didn't play Tipton Terrace in the kind of clubs I played in. Yeah, but that's an interesting story. But you know, there's a lot of good ones along the way. I played 2 years, and there's countless stories about who you played with, who you opened for. Driving from Hot Springs, Arkansas on a Friday night to Indian Lake, Ohio, and playing the next night, leaving that job 30 minutes after you're done and getting to the next one 15 minutes before you're supposed to start. You got set up, you changed clothes, and you played the job and got back in the car and left. So there's lots of them.
What was it, the favorite song for the band? Wow, that's a tough question, all the thousands of songs. I guess what comes to mind is 1968. Birds came out with an album called Sweetheart of the Rodeo, and it just took me by storm. It was the first commercial viable country rock record, I guess, and just wore probably 6 of those albums out, listening to this thing and learning the songs. And I guess it's memorable because the songs that Larry and I get together, there's where we go, right to those songs, and we've played them for, I don't know, 50 years. Yeah, so I guess that's Sweetheart of the Rodeo.
Well, for me, I don't think I ever stopped and really thought about a single song, but one comes to mind. I'm just sitting here thinking about it and say, like I said earlier, the Rolling Stones were a big influence on me, and I was a drummer, or still am a drummer, I guess, at heart. But so the song for me from the Rolling Stones was Satisfaction. It had that and just was like nothing I had ever heard before. I don't think they copied anybody. It was all brand new, and so for me it was Satisfaction.
Rather than pick a song, I'm going to pick a group, the Four Tops. I can remember distinctly at the time playing with the Bearfacts, we were wearing blue sweaters, white pants, and white Dickies. And I meant to bring a Dickie, but I couldn't find one. And we played a venue, didn't know a lot about the venue. It was like an auditorium stage with a curtain. And when the curtain opened, the only white faces in the building were the 6 of us, and the entire audience was a black audience. And when we started playing the Four Tops, and we probably played 4 or 5 or 6 of their songs, it was a great evening of music for everybody. So Four Tops for me.
It's a lot easier to follow you. Let's see. Obviously, I mentioned the Beatles. Pick a song. They're all tremendous. Probably one of my most worn out albums when they existed. Anything by the Beach Boys. Pretty much anything by the Beach Boys. I always loved harmony. So anything by the Beach Boys and everybody else.
I remember Saturday, I think we were going to play at Hullabaloo that night over in Portage. Wasn't that Portage? Curtis and I went up, I think one of you, a couple of others you might have gone with us. We went up to a rock festival in Saugatuck. This must have been like 67 or 68. And I remember it was kind of raining. We were waiting for the rain to calm down to go to the concert. But we were sitting in an ice cream, I don't know if you've been to Saugatuck, but there's lots of like stores and boutiques and stuff. But there was an ice cream shop. And Curtis and I were sitting there, and somebody had a portable record player out in the rain playing the Hendrix Are You Experienced album. And I just thought, there's no particular song. I mean, every song is like, they're classic songs, There's some albums, there's like 1 or 2 good songs on it, but you listen to like the Beatles or Hendrix, and it was just, every song was just a killer song. I just remember that record spinning around with the water on it, and it was playing, it sounded great. Just kind of was the mood up there.
I had to raise this mic a little bit. For me, I
remember growing up and there was all kinds of stuff on the radio at the beach at Stone Lake. There was Neil Sataka, there was Ricky, what's Ricky's name? Frank? Ricky Nelson, I forgot the Nelson. I can't remember ever being imitated as a bare fact, so man, you guys were hot. For me, after that, it kind of went to jazzy and brass stuff. We tried real hard to play the Buckinghams and all of that. I think we did some Ides of March, all that stuff out of Chicago. You know, we were told we were just a couple of years too late, or else we would have been there. So.
He was just telling Riviera stories, and I had a Riviera story, but we can do it later. Come on, man. Like I said, the Rivieras were a big influence in my life. When their album came out, I think we played Lucky Killer Joe, Rockin' Robin, California Sun. It was just unreal before the Beatles hit. I mean, it was just a really great album. And in later years, we did end up doing a lot of jobs with the Rivieras at the Civic Auditorium and South Bend and a whole bunch of places. But I remember Otto, who was the organ player, he was telling me a story one time when they were playing up in Iowa. They were playing with Chuck Berry, and this is early 60s, you know, so you didn't know what Chuck Berry looked like. So they're all up on stage just like you would be at the back of the Civic Auditorium, and the Rivieras are up on stage. All of a sudden, this great big, tall, lanky-looking black guy comes walking in with an amplifier and a guitar, and he's walking up to the stage, and somebody in the Riviera says, "Damn, Chuck Berry's got a roadie." That's what it was, sorry.
What was your first instrument?
Let's see, I think I started drum lessons over in South Bend. And I can't remember why I traveled all the way to South Bend for a drum lesson, but I did. I got my first set. I mean, like every new drummer, you start off with a pair of sticks, of course, and then a drum pad. Because, that's why I think my parents said you need drum lessons, because I beat on everything I could find. You know, that's what you do when you're a drummer. And so then when I met Roger and Steve Hines and Steve Hidella, we were the original Lonesome Souls, and we met at Stillwell School. And we were probably about 14, I believe it was. And all I still had was my practice pad. But I wanted to play rock and roll so bad, right? So I beat on boxes for the rest of that year, and then at Christmas, my parents bought me my first kit, which was a Camco, which I still have that snare today. That's all I got left of that set. But Camco was a drum company out of Illinois, out of Chicago area. So did I answer it? Yes. Okay.
Now, before we go too far, Kendall, yeah, you're asking what their first instrument was. Was your first instrument the Strat that you have now? She's got a Fender Stratocaster. So we're going to cross our fingers that someday she's going to be doing this.
And I don't think any of us probably started with the instrument we play with now. We all started with something called a flutophone. We took lessons in grade school. It was like a little clarinet, a flutophone. That's how you learn the scale. And then I remember my first was at 10 years old. I joined the Maple City Cadets Drum Corps, and that's where I got started. And about 4 years after that, I got started trying to play a kit on the furniture. And then I did the same thing. I I put a kit together by borrowing from about 4 people. And until I joined the Rivieras, I didn't buy my first full kit that matched. I played my first job, and I think I got laughed at because I had 14 different colors on the drum set. You know, now that's the way you do it.
Well, I remember the first instrument wasn't necessarily mine, but the first instrument I played was my dad's Gibson 1949 Gibson J45 guitar. It was huge thing. And I still have that guitar today. And I remember playing that, but the first instrument that I owned, I was trying to think, it had to be most likely a Sears Silvertone guitar. Probably ordered from Sears, probably got in the mail, and the action was that, the strings were that far from the fretboard. It hurt the finger so bad. That was, and they had, back then they had the guitar with an amplifier in the case. And it was just a little speaker in the case with a little bitty amplifier in there. And all you had to do was carry your case around. You had your amplifier and everything. That had to be my first thing.
Well, I think everybody started with the flutophone. I have fond memories of the Silvertone amplifier. Until we went to see Crazy Jack. When we went to see Crazy Jack, Wes told you that story. We did walk out in there that night with 3 dual Showmans and a custom PA, which made us the hottest shots there were around at the time. I think I owed my dad $10,000 forever for that. But that debt got forgiven pretty quickly.
The first thing was a flutophone, then I switched to a cornet, which I still have, a Blessing cornet. And that's what got me into bare facts. Kirkman wanted some horns because Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I don't think Chicago was quite on the scene yet, but then they came along and that even pushed us over more to get horn players. And we got Curtis in the band. He was a trumpet player and a keyboard player. Well, I was a trumpet player and a guitar player, so I think it just fell together in the late '60s. It was just that time, and that type of music was just starting out really. But Blood, Sweat, and Tears, playing the horn, and like I said, it developed to Chicago. I do.
I think I already answered it really. Because when I saw the Beatles, I was 14, and that's when I went out and I got my bass guitar. I think it's the same answer as the first, but that was it.
Okay, grandkids, you're the stars of the questions tonight, so you have any more?
I got one.
You got one. Here we go. This is Casm's mom.
I am Kazin's mom, and you guys have been around for a long time. What is the best? We all know what comes with music, okay? Pros, cons. What is your best advice for these upcoming musicians?
That's a good one.
Okay, can you hear me? I mean, what is your advice for these kids that are, trying to get into the music scene?
I mean, the best advice I could give is don't ever lose your love for it. You gotta love it first. And, whether you're by yourself or playing for yourself or whatever, that's what it is.
Yeah, as Larry said, I think the most important thing is never let it be a job. Let it be your love, and do it because you truly love to do it. And as a professional musician told me one time, he says, play your guitar everywhere. I don't care if it's behind the barn, play your guitar. And I think that's what it takes. Just dedication to the instrument and constant playing. Sometimes somebody will see you that likes you.
Well, I may not say what you want me to say, but I will tell you, remember that it's a business today. In my career, I've met a lot of great singers that have no business sense, financial sense, or drive. And at the same time, I've met a lot of people with a lot of drive, but not a lot of talent. The successful one is able to put the talent, the drive, and find a way to remember that it's a business and try to be in the right place at the right time. So dedication is extremely important. But today it's a little different than it was in the past. Today it's about money and it's a business. So.
Well, I guess I have had I've been a songwriter for quite a few years, and I can remember going down to Nashville, and when they wanted to sign you for a record deal, they wanted to put you in with the wrestlers, with the dancers, with everything else. And I'm thinking, all I want to do is play rock and roll or music and stuff. And they says, well, you're entertainment. We don't care what you do. And that just kind of turned me off, because music my whole life got me through school, got me through bad times. And when the economy's really bad and you're hurting for money, I can sit down and play my guitar and just kind of drift away. So that's what it's all about. So like Rod says, just keep playing it. Larry says, keep playing it.
One of the answers that Larry gave when he started talking about love of the music, I wanted to go over and read again what was on the wreath, and it said, life is a song, love is the music. So there you go.
My question is for, I suppose, specifically to Mr. West England. I understand you guys had a big break in Chicago. We were in some sort of a talent or Battle of the Bands contest. You won the contest or something, and an agency was about to pick you up, and they had ideas about how to promote you, and it didn't fly, and I want to get the details on that.
Back in the day when WLS Radio played rock and roll, they were the largest rock and roll venue in Chicago at the time, and they had started a contest called the WLS Big Break Contest, and you could submit music and those types of things. And we had just went up to Chicago to Universal Studios and recorded a couple of songs, and so we had submitted that to the radio station, and it's always a high point. I know that Terry can attest to this. When you're driving down the road and you hear your song being played on one of the largest radio stations in Chicago, and you're hearing it every day and every week, it really helps build your ego. But we were one of the finalists to come in and play at Orchestra Hall in Chicago, and along with Tommy James and the Shondells and a number of other groups. All of the big name DJs were there. And we had also submitted that same music to, was it Decca Records or Dell Records? And we were waiting to, hopefully, to be picked up by them. The bottom line on it was that, Dan alluded to it a little bit earlier, we had jumped into things a little bit behind some of the groups like the New Colony Six and the Crying Chains and the Buckinghams. And so when Decca or Dell Records, I can't remember which one it was, listened to our material, they were really interested. But again, going back to the question I had with you, as it being a business, they said you guys are a fantastic group. You got the harmonies, you have the horns, and they said, unfortunately, we have those groups already. Okay, so a lot of it is about timing and those kinds of things, but it was a great opportunity. We really enjoyed it. So thanks for the question.
I want to add just a little bit to that. But the outfit that they requested, because of the name, they felt they felt that we needed to wear these skin-colored, skin-tight pants and no shirts, and we said no. So don't let anybody change what you want to do.
Would like to know, when did you guys start playing music?
Terry, what age were you when you started playing music?
10.
10?
10.
So 20 years ago?
My first band was about age 50.
Right? Well, wait a minute. We got it going now.
Interested first group was 4 of us that all hung out at Tipton Terrace. A couple guys, one guy from Valparaiso, 2 guys from out at the lake by Newfoundland, Hudson. And we all got together, Tipton, and said, let's start playing. I probably played with them for 8 or 9 months. I think I played 2 jobs. And then I tried out for the Rivieras. Interesting, Frank talks about John Meister. I don't know if John's here yet, but the guy who told me to ask the Rivieras for a tryout is the guy who gave John his lessons. Chip Baginski was his name, Stan Baginski. And he was a great drummer. He played in the backup group that you're talking about. The Trondells with a guy named Kim Hudson, and they were all out of Hudson Lake area. So 10 years old, first group at about 13 or 14, 15, somewhere there. One more thing to add. And at age 67, I just got back into a group, and I'm playing again.
I remember I was 12 years old, knew one song, and we started a band and started playing. I don't know how we got through the night, but I knew the one song. I do want to say something before I forget it. I want to thank my mother, who is here tonight, because I remember, and I'll bet you that every one of these guys on the stage remembers what your families went through when you practiced at home in the basement or in the garage, and if other families are like mine, the mother usually was the one that kept the peace in the family and said, you know, let those boys alone, and Dad would do the best he could to do that. So I wanted to thank my mother, all the other mothers that put up with everybody. So
We're going to wind down this portion of it now. Because, yeah, we really want to let down. What we want to do, if we can, is let you guys clear off the stage, and then I'm going to let the people start coming in that are here for the music portion. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for their